One of my favorite things lately has been interacting with all of the other like-minded small business owners inside of my free online community. If you want access to free resources, tools, trainings, tons of great sales advice, and just general encouragement for your business journey, then click the link in the show notes and join myself and other small business owners inside the She Sells Differently Facebook group today. When you have too many products, it really dilutes your brand message, and it can make it harder for your customers to understand what you specialize in. Hi, friends. Welcome to She Sells Differently, the show for aspiring women entrepreneurs looking to overcome the fear of selling and grow thriving businesses from a place of authenticity and confidence. I'm Andy Hart, and it wasn't all that long ago that I was a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company. But I knew in my heart that I was called to use my gifts for something more, something different. That's exactly why I created the She Sells Differently podcast. Each episode is going to deliver you business strategies, tools, and mindset shifts to help set you and your brand apart from our culture's expectations. It's time to elevate your sales and build a profitable, sustainable business you're proud of. One built on integrity, grace, and humility. It's time to learn how to sell differently. Welcome back to the She Sells Differently podcast. So glad that you are here. We are going to be diving into how to streamline your product portfolio. I see this mistake that product makers so often make because they are offering the gamut in their product portfolio, when in reality, when you offer less, it will help you sell more. So today we're going to be diving into how to streamline your product portfolio to help you sell more. And I want to share just real quick, I am a candle maker. If you've listened to this podcast for very long, most people know that I got my start as an entrepreneur with Heart Design Co. And I started making candles in my kitchen during the pandemic. And when I was making candles and started making candles, and all candle makers will relate, but your eyes get so big with all of the options, all of the different vessel options, all of the different fragrance oil options. And it is endless. The options are endless. And I am sure that if you are a jewelry maker, if you make art, whatever it is that you create as a product maker, you can relate, because when you are creating beautiful things, you put them out into the world to sell, right? And so when you put them out into the world, it is easy to just continue to create and broaden your portfolio. But the problem with that is that the more products that you have, it can just create a massive, massive product overload, and that can gradually decrease your sales. And we are going to talk about why that is today. So the first reason that is, and a lot of people don't realize the psychology behind this, but when you have a broad product portfolio, it actually creates decision fatigue. I want you to think about the last time that you made a purchase, whether it was big or small. You walked into a store and you had a lot of options. You had a lot of options to choose from. Did you actually make a purchase? Or did you decide that you were going to think about it and you went home and you did your research? Or you were afraid of making the wrong choice because there were way too many options? I have done that more times than I would like to admit. And it really depends on what type of buyer you are. If you are one of those that gets overwhelmed by a lot of options, some buyers are like, oh, that doesn't bother me at all. I'll just make my decision and move on, right? But a lot of consumers, that creates decision fatigue. And so the more products that you have in your product portfolio, then a lot of your consumers, that is going to turn them off and overwhelm them when you as a product maker think that you're doing them a favor. You're giving them more options, but they're overwhelmed, and a confused mind says no. A confused mind says no. So the chances of you making a sale just went down. The chances of you making a sale just went down when you have an overly large product line. So I want you to think about, is your product portfolio too big? The second impact of a product portfolio that is too big is it decreases your brand clarity and positioning. When you have too many products, it really dilutes your brand message, and it can make it harder for your customers to understand what you specialize in. They may even think that your brand is unfocused, and they may perceive that you're not an expert in any one area. They may not see that you have a niche, and you may have heard the term, the riches are in the niches. And that is very, very true. But when you have a very large product line, it can really dilute that niche. So I want you to think about how that creates an unfocused brand. A scattered product line makes your marketing efforts inconsistent and so often confusing for your customer. In addition, I have seen so many of my clients have decision paralysis as business owners because they're constantly adding new products without a clear strategy. So they are feeling burnt out and have no direction in their business, much less with their brand or their marketing strategy. The third impact is the high inventory cost and management challenges. This is a huge one because it requires a lot of effort and resources to track and reorder and restock each SKU that goes into creating the product variant that you carry. And then there's hidden costs such as the storage and spoilage, if that's applicable for the product that you are creating, or even just slow moving items that are not your best sellers. And so those items that might not sell quickly, they could be outdated or expired, or they're just unsellable stock. And so then you have to mark them down and have clearance sales or even write them off. And then that is going to negatively affect your profitability. In addition, having that wide variety of products can often lead to the smaller production runs, which just increases your per unit cost. In addition, when you are not as focused on your core products, your best selling products, it's really less of an opportunity to improve your overall business efficiency, like negotiating with your suppliers for better deals, which is one of the things that I talk about with my wholesale students all of the time. Negotiating with your individual suppliers to get your supply cost down. This is something that so many product makers do not take advantage of. And it can simply be picking up the phone, calling your suppliers and asking to purchase in bulk and cutting your cost of goods down. And that will greatly increase your profit margins. So you may be thinking, all of this is great information. I can see the impact that having too broad of a product portfolio might have on my business. But how do I know, or what are the signs that my product portfolio is too big? I'm going to give you a couple of signs. These are good indicators that your product line is too big. The first one, you might have sales inconsistencies, sales data inconsistencies. So some items sell really well, and then others are just sitting on your shelves collecting dust. So if you have inventory, finished goods that are just sitting on the shelf collecting dust and you think, no big deal, it's not costing me money, it absolutely is. Talk to your CPA. That is costing you money. That's the first sign, sales data inconsistencies. The second, if you have difficulty in managing production or sourcing materials, you should be able to source your materials in bulk. And I know I just mentioned this, but when you have a core focus on great selling products, you should be able to source your materials, get them with a quick, consistent lead time, and know what your profit margins are. And if you are having difficulty managing your production and you're having to produce small batches of your products and you're having trouble sourcing those materials, that's a good indicator that your product line may be too big. Another sign that your product portfolio might be a little bit too large is customer confusion. If you are getting questions about the differences between some of the products in your line, that is a clear indicator that you have some overlapping products and you can definitely retire some of those products. So if customers are asking you, I don't understand the differences here, then it might be time to look at your sales data and consider retiring or getting rid of some of those product variants. Another clear indicator is if you have some longer lead times in shipping out your products, whether to consumers or directly to retailers, whether if you wholesale, because of the complexity of managing multiple SKUs and product variants, that's a great indicator as well. You do not want to have very long lead times. That's going to definitely dampen your sales. And if you're having long lead times because of the complexity of your production, then you definitely want to streamline your product portfolio. So how do you do that? That leads to probably your next question. How do I eliminate products? What products do I eliminate? How do I streamline my product portfolio? This is what I recommend, and this does not have to be difficult, but so often it is painful for us as product makers. The first thing is to conduct a product audit. And I recommend doing this not necessarily from a revenue standpoint, but from a profit standpoint. Revenue is one thing, but profit is a whole different ballgame. So assess the profitability of each product. Look at the customer demand and then the operational efficiency. So how much profit is each of your product variants bringing in? How many units of each of those products have you sold over the last 12 rolling months? How long does it take you to produce each of those units? So labor-wise, it may be more labor-intensive to produce some products over others. Production cost or labor cost should definitely be considered in your overall cost of goods as well. So you want to use those analytics and customer feedback to determine your top performing products. What I would recommend if you have never gone through this exercise before, I absolutely recommend first time getting rid of your bottom 10% of your products. It is very hard, but this is a good exercise to do, and your business will be healthier overall for it. Now, how do you move those products? How do you get rid of them? So here's a couple of strategies to move those products. You can bundle those slow moving products with some of your best sellers to help move them and retire them. You can offer seasonal or limited edition drops instead of offering them as year-round availability. And one of the things I often do instead of offering year-round availability, and I do this to test products to see if they are going to sell well, I will first launch them as a limited edition drop to test the market. So that is a pro tip for you if you want to test a new product variant for your portfolio, but really get customer feedback first. Offer it as a limited edition drop. And if it really sells well, then you can incorporate it into your year-round portfolio. Anytime I add a new product to my product portfolio, I will usually retire a product as well. So I'm not constantly growing my product portfolio. So it's just one in, one out. So those are some easy strategies to downsize. Bundle those slow-moving items with your best sellers. So maybe a free gift with purchase. And make sure that you're communicating, if you're wholesaling, communicating to your retailers that these items, these product variants are retiring. And you can even offer a limited time discount for the remaining inventory and move those products out. Move them out, retire them, and downsize your product portfolio. And I would love to hear feedback if this helps you sell more, because even for retailers and consumers alike, this will definitely help clarify your brand, your messaging, and what you are focused on for your best sellers. It will help clarify for your customers, both retailers and consumers alike, what your best sellers are. It will help you as a business owner as well focus on the important operational efficiencies for your business too. So I hope this was helpful. This is one of those hard things as a business owner to put into practice, but your business will be overall so much healthier if you get into a regular rhythm of streamlining and auditing your product portfolio. So make sure that you conduct your product audit. And I also have a pricing and profit workbook if you need help with this. So I will include that in the show notes for you if you would like access to that. And then join me back next Wednesday because I am going to walk you guys through how to create a brand that people fall in love with. So I am excited to dive into that. If you have not followed the show or subscribed and rated and reviewed, I would love if you would take 30 seconds and like, subscribe, and review the She Sells Differently podcast. It would be an honor. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of She Sells Differently. Friends, it would be a huge blessing to me if you would take 2 seconds to rate and subscribe to my podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, I'm cheering you on in your entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.